Greetings, everyone. Today's November 1st. Last night was Halloween. I spent it at work. And I watched this podcast by Planet Weird, the guys that made Hellier. It was really good. It was about the Amityville Horror Haunted House. And I made me some coffee that was like half hot cocoa, half like a mocha latte or whatever. And the rest of the night I spent reading N0S4A2. I spent all weekend reading this. It's almost 700 pages, and I did not think I was going to like it the first 100 pages because there was a lot of like setting up the main characters. A lot of stuff didn't make sense because the antagonist is like this guy. He's talking about like taking children to Christmas land. It's a place inside of his head. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make sense. But then once you get past that first 100 pages, boom! Probably the best book I've read all year. It's just like, it's amazing. It's a masterpiece. This is the best, one of the best Stephen King books I've ever read. Surprisingly not written by Stephen King. It's written by his son, Joe Hill. And it's almost like, you could say it's a spiritual successor to Dr. Sleep. And it also has like hints of It and The Stand in there. And the Dark Tower a little bit. And it even mentions like Shawshank. There's all kinds of like Easter eggs from the Stephen King multiverse in there. I gotta look up some of the reviews to see if like people that are huge Stephen King fans have read this. Because if you haven't, fucking read it. Now. Oh, Christine. There's a car called it's like a Rolls Royce Wraith. It's just like the fucking car from Christine. It's like one of those evil cars. There's so many similarities. It's kind of weird because he doesn't really credit Stephen King that much in it. I don't know if he has like issues with his dad or something, but it's like people talk about Joe Abercrombie being like a really good character writer, but I haven't read any yet. But it'll be hard to beat Joe Hill. I mean, if you like the Lock and Key show on Netflix, I'm gonna get those comic books, and he wrote those. Yeah, so the beginning was a little bit wonky, setting up the characters almost kind of like, you know, the Stand By Me or It, one of those like kids on bicycles kind of a thing, you know? And they have this weird, it's basically about certain people have superpowers. Mental, psychic superpowers like in Dr. Sleep or the Institute. A lot of the Institute, you can kind of feel that coming through. They have objects that they love a lot, and that allows them to punch a hole in reality into like pocket dimensions and kind of like do weird things. And oh my god, the characterization, like I was talking about, he's like, what they say about Joe Abercrombie, or like they say about John Gwynne, how he writes a lot of characters that you fall in love with the characters, but they're not safe. They can always die. Like there's always tension that the characters in this book are not safe, and they can get hurt permanently or maimed, and you never know what's going to happen. And it's like, it's a thriller. I don't want to say too much in the beginning. I'm going to, like, a lot of my videos, I noticed that like I spoil a lot of stuff, so I'm going to give you the beginning non-spoilery, then I'm going to fucking tell you what's going on. So usually in a fiction story you have like a build-up and a lot of tension, and then there's a climax, and then just like a little resolution and kind of a wrap-up. There is like a build-up and a climax around page 180, but somewhere in there I was like, holy shit! So then that happens, and then there's a time skip, and then there's some more build-up, and then there's another climax. The guy gets, I don't want to say too much, and then there's like another build-up, and there's like a child abduction happens. And then there's a whole like chase and kind of a constant. It just keeps paying off and delivering every time. It's like you just want to read more and more of it. That's good that it's 700 pages, because most books would have ended around page 300 or so, but this just kept going, keeps giving you more and more, and it keeps surprising you. The ending, you think it's gonna go one way, and then you're like, they've done something that they can't. And then it figures out a different way, and it surprises you. And then you wonder, like, well, what's going to happen with this kid? Is it going to be... How's he going to, like, come back from this? And it surprises you again with like a different way that it resolves itself. And it's just like, damn. Damn, dude. So, yeah. There's a defeat and kind of rescue and then a time skip, child abduction. And then you got the police like working against the protagonist. So there's all that kind of attention, and then the police kind of start to come around and they start to believe things that are impossible to believe because like this magical kind of ability they have, it actually affects the real world and people can see it, and it's so crazy. So if you don't want any spoilers, you can go ahead and stop now. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you kind of what it's about now. The main character is named Victoria McQueen, and she has this bicycle her dad buys for her, and she loves this bicycle, and she's like looking for something that's lost. And there's this bridge, covered bridge, that was destroyed in like 1960 something or whatever, and it's like it's gone. And she's riding her bike, and all she sees that bridge that's gone. She's like, that's weird. She starts riding across it, and it takes her right to the thing that was lost. And it's like in the middle of somebody's backyard or somewhere. It's like it's a tunnel through space-time, and it finds things. So that's what it does. But it's also a construct of her mind. So the more you use it, there's these bats inside of the covered bridge, and if they like get out of there, then she loses a little bit of her mind, and it makes her go more and more insane. So it's like one of those things where you use it up, it hurts you. And at one point, she's like going through, looking for this picture that she had. She left it in her locker at school. She goes through the tunnel. She ends up in the middle of school with a bridge behind her, right? And the janitor sees it, and he has like a heart attack. He's like, "What the hell is this?" And it's like, then she's like, I need to find someone who can tell me I'm not crazy. And then she goes through the bridge and she ends up in like Nebraska, I think. Yeah. There's this girl in a library. She's a 20-year-old girl, like a librarian. And it kind of describes her as like an elven, kind of a weird dressed girl with these Scrabble tile earrings. She's like a Scrabble player. And she's like the other girl. She has like, the Scrabble game is her, what they call like a knife to cut through reality, like a tool. And she can kind of tell the future with it. She knew she was coming and stuff. She knew her name. She knew all this stuff because of the Scrabble tiles. And the more she uses her Scrabble tiles, the more it makes her stutter and stammer. So that's kind of her drawback, right? So, how do they first know about the bad guy? Oh, she tells her about him, I think. There's this guy. A lot of illustrations in this, too. This guy's name is Charlie Manx. He's like a child abductor. And you would think he'd be like a child molester, but he's not. He's just like, kind of like a vampire that uses kids to like live longer. Where is this photo at? He's got this 1938 Rolls Royce Phantom. Not a Phantom, a Wraith. Man, now there was a picture of him and I can't find it now. He's like a chauffeur. He looks like a chauffeur. He's like 90 something years old, but he's really like 115 because these kids keep him alive. And there was a kid that went missing, I think. This was like way back in the beginning. I can't really remember all this stuff. It's like all these characters are so unique. It's like Joe Hill is like Bob Ross with a paintbrush, and he just puts a dab of paint on each character that makes him just interesting enough that it distinguish them from other people that are unique. So Victoria ends up using her bicycle to go through this tunnel to this guy, which the girl told her like never go near him. He's like dangerous. He's like us. And she sees a kid in the back of his car that he kidnapped, and she tries to rescue the kid, but the kid doesn't want to leave. He's like been hypnotized, and he's kind of like got these weird little hook teeth, right? Because he's like, anything he touches turns to ice, like he's cold too. He's like a weird transformed kid. It's so creepy. And she barely gets away from that kid and Charlie Manx at this house they call the sleigh house, like sleigh ride. And it's got this Christmas tree out front with like all these ornaments on it. That's all these kids of these souls. He has like little knickknacks he saved from them, like a collector. And she gets up on the top of this road, and there's a fat guy on a Harley that saves her and like picks her up and takes her away. She ends up falling in love with this guy. He's like, this guy, Lou Carmody is his name, Louis Carmody. He's like a nerdy, fat guy that's into like Star Wars and comic books and all kinds of stuff like a nerd would be, and it's great. He's a great character. They have, so then he takes her down the road to this gas station, right? And she goes inside with him. There's a little group of people. This is how he makes interesting characters. There's like an ex-military guy. I guess this was like in the 90s or something. So it'd be like Desert Storm. Maybe he came back from the war. Him and his wife and his baby are there. And there's this like park ranger. And there's the guy behind the counter. And she's telling them how she just escaped from this child molester. Because she's not even supposed to be there. This was in like Boulder, Colorado, right? Or Gun Barrel. It's like near Boulder, Colorado. And she's from like Massachusetts or something. So she's like, she went through this portal. She's like not even supposed to be there. And the fucking guy pulls up to get gas in his Wraith. And she's like, that's him. And like the ex-military guy and the park ranger go out there and confront him. And Charlie Meigs comes out of his car. And he's like, they put him against his car. You know, they start taking all of the stuff out of his pockets. And there's like a lighter and some other stuff. And Charlie Meigs just kind of like, he's stronger than he looks, and he like grabs the military guy and he just starts dousing him with gasoline and lights him on fire with that lighter. And it's dope. And then the baby is saying like, hot daddy, hot daddy. But even the baby has like his own character and he's distinguished and stuff. So he ends up killing that military guy. It's dope. And then Louis Carmody comes out there with a fire extinguisher, smashes that guy's face in, and they catch him. So he's caught. Then there's the time skip, right? So he's in prison for like 15, 20 years or something, so it skips forward. So Victoria now has been in a mental asylum, and she's like had all this trouble. Her and Louis never got married, but they did have a baby that he named, because he's a comic book guy, and he names him Bruce Wayne Carmody, right? So, yeah, this is so dope. Also, the girl in Kansas, she time skips later, and she's kind of like fucked up too. She's had all kinds of drug problems. There's a lot of like wife beating people and like drug problems. And these characters are gritty, real people with problems. Nobody's like a hero or perfect or anything. It's great, perfect characterization. There's a scene where, so the old man has been in prison, like 90-something years old. He dies because he's like connected to his car. His car is him, and he's the car. The car has been destroyed, and they do an autopsy on him. He's like cut up and stuff. And then he's got this sidekick. He's kind of like Dracula, and he's got a Renfield guy, you know, he's like his sidekick. And then his name is the Gas Mask Man, which is very similar to the Trash Can Man from The Stand. He acts like him. He even says, there's a quote from him, he says, "My life for you," which is just straight out of The Stand. It's like what the guy says. I think it's him, or maybe it's one of the other guys in The Stand. I think it's Trash Can Man that says that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. So he has a gas mask, and he works in this chemical plant. He has these like tanks of sevoflurane, which is like what dentists use to like make you, it's like laughing gas, kind of makes you happy, submissive, tell the truth. I think eventually it'll make you pass out. It's super flammable, which comes very important later on. And he's kind of a fat guy, and he's like breaking out the guy that's dead. He like, somebody had found that Wraith car and restored it, and since he's connected to the Wraith, even though he's dead, if the car lives, if it's roadworthy, then he's roadworthy. He like lives. So he breaks him out of the hospital. The hospital that he's in at the morgue at this prison or whatever, right? The nurse and the security guard have this thing. Like if a famous person dies, the security guard will like take selfies with the guy, send it to the nurse, and she'll get turned on by it. And then they'll meet in this room, like with stirrups, like a hospital room, like has those stirrups. And then he'll fuck her. I was like, holy twisted psycho shit, Batman. That was dope. And then there's like this bone mallet that the guy Charlie Meigs steals. It's like his weapon for the rest of the book. This like hooked, like a crowbar hammer with a giant silver hammer thing. So that's like the escape part of it. And then, let's see. Yeah, so Victoria is kind of like Danny from The Shining and Doctor Sleep. She's kind of like, you know how he's kind of fucked up in Doctor Sleep? He's like an alcoholic like his dad was, and she's kind of like been through a mental hospital and all kinds of other problems. And then Gas Mask Man was like Trash Can Man. Charlie Manx is kind of like Slender Man mixed with the Night Flyer vampire, and he looks like Montgomery Burns from The Simpsons. He's kind of crazy. The car's like Christine. The abilities they have are all kind of similar to like the Institute or the psychics from. I think they even called them Gorks at one point, kind of like in the Stephen King books. And they even have like a reference to the Doors to Midworld, which is like a whatchamacallit, Dark Tower reference. They mentioned Shawshank Prison. So the guy breaks him out of. He starts kidnapping people again, right? I don't think he kidnapped anybody but the girl's son, Batman, Bruce Wayne Carmody, right? He ends up kidnapping the kid. And there's just all kinds of little stuff that goes on. You gotta read the book. Like the guy gives her a jacket that's kind of like armored, and he calls it like a +4 to armor class jacket and stuff. And she gets beat with a bat or with that hammer, and it sounds like her bones are breaking, but it's really like this plates that are in Kevlar plates in this jacket that's breaking. It kind of saves her. And then she jumps in the water, and the guy shoots at her, and like the police come, and they can't find any evidence of any of this happening, so they don't really believe her. And they think she's like killed her own kid or something. They think she's done something, so they kind of like they're testing her, and they're kind of like fucking with her. She ends up kind of like busting out of the house and taking off on this motorcycle that she's been fixing up, which has kind of like replaced her bicycle from when she's a kid. It's her new thing that she loves, and it helps her like travel across this bridge and use her like power again, right? So there's this whole like chase where like they look for the kid through this like Find My iPhone, because the kid has an iPhone, and it brings up this fucked up map of what they call an inverse? That's not right. What is it called? Inquest? No, that's not right. Inscape. Yeah, like a dreamscape, but it's inside your mind or something like that. And it shows like the St. Nicholas Parkway going to Christmas Land, and all these dots along the place is like named after Christmassy stuff. And then there's like a Pennywise circus on there. It's referencing it. And so like whenever he's moving, Charlie Manx is in the car driving, she can't teleport to him because it's like trying to shoot an arrow out of the air because it's moving, right? So she has to wait till he stops. She can kind of like figure out where he's going to go, and she realizes she's going to that guy, Gas Mask Man's house, because they're going to stop there for something. And they call that the House of Sleep, because this Gas Mask Man, whenever he would kidnap kids, he would like take the parent, be it male or female. He would gas them up in his house, and he would fuck them. If it's a dude, he would just make him give him a blowjob because they're all gassed out. He didn't even care. And then he would take lye, and he would melt their bodies down, and he'd keep them in little cubby holes behind little mud walls and shit in his basement. It's fucked up as hell. It's so cool because these characters are so wild and crazy. Even like the cops that are at her house chasing her down. Like, one of the cops is like, she's a comic book nerd secretly, and the other cop is an asshole, just enough of an asshole that you can get an impression of how he probably looks. And one of them is like an Indian woman. It's just, there's an IT guy. It's so dope. Every one of these characters is like, this would be a really good TV show, and I would like to be the person to pick the cast. Let me get there's some quotes from this I gotta bring into the picture. Page 552. Right? This is about innocence. So they're talking about these kids that are in Christmas land, and she's the woman with the Scrabble earrings is telling her what's going on, and she says they're still children. I think they're just children who can't understand anything except fun. They've been remade into Manx's idea of childhood perfection. He wants kids to be forever innocent. Innocence ain't all it's cracked up to be, you know. Innocent little kids rip the wings off flies because they don't know any better. That's innocence. That's pretty dope. And then on page 613, there's a quote about imagination becoming reality. And where was that at? Is this the right page? It sounded like delusion until you remembered that people made the imaginary real all the time, taking the music they heard in their head and recording it, seeing a house in their imagination and building it. Fantasy was always only a reality waiting to be switched on. I'll tell you something else that was weird while I'm reading this book. The cover, I didn't talk about the cover. There's all these like mosquitoes, like dead mosquitoes on it. And the kids, when he transforms them, I said they had those little hook teeth, kind of like fluke worms or lampreys or something. They got these, they suck your blood or whatever, right? I'm reading this book, and an actual mosquito comes in and lands right next to me, and I smack it with the book. And there's a picture of the dead mosquito next to the book with the dead mosquitoes. What are the odds of that happening? That's so crazy. So yeah, then you get to the end of the book, and she like has this resolution with her dad, and there's like Lou is having like heart attack things happening. Everybody looks like they could die. There's explosives. There's like she goes to the Christmas land, and you think she's going to do one thing because you have to blow up this car to kill him, but then that doesn't happen. But something else happens, and then the whole ending is like after that, like I don't know. You got to read it. I don't want to spoil the ending, but oh my god, is that all I wanted to talk about? I don't know. There's so many more characters I think that I didn't even mention. All the characters are amazing. I don't know if I've ever given a standing ovation for a book before, but if I could, I would stand up and clap for this. I mean, I've had some really good books this year. The Expanse stuff, all of that's 10 out of 10. Stormlight Archives, 10 out of 10. That Job, Comedy of Errors by Robert Hyland, I thought was going to be like the best book of the year. Probably way up there. One of the best books I've ever read. My mom's reading it right now. But I'm going to do a year in review at the end of the year when I see how many books I've read this year. And I don't know, this one really surprised me. I've got another book. I've got The Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill I could read. Plus that Lock and Key series. I'm sure there's more than what was in the TV show. Yeah, I did not expect Joe Hill to be that good of a writer. I haven't read anything by Owen Hill or Owen King. What? Oh yeah, he didn't change his name. The other guy, Joe Hill, changed his name, I guess, to separate himself from his dad for some reason. I don't know what all that's about. But I feel like there's more I want to talk about, but it's not coming to me right now. Oh, there's this guy, Bilbo, who's like a nurse after Lou has his heart attack, and he's like a fan of Firefly, and they're both like nerding out with each other, and like I could see like the actor that would play him is from. There's a guy on Grey's Anatomy that would be perfect to play that character. It's like you could see these characterizations that are just like dope. And none of the characters are safe, which is always, you gotta make them like able to be killed or maimed. You can't make no plot armor in this book. This would be a really good movie too. So now, what am I going to read next? I may go to the next Expanse book. But it is November, and I did say November is going to be Joe Abercrombie month, so I kind of want to start on that. But I do want like one more non-fantasy book as a buffer. Not horror, though, because I just read horror. And Halloween is now over. And I don't want it to be something that's going to take forever to read. So, yeah, that's probably going to have to be The Expanse, maybe. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to read The Expanse next. I don't know if I can get all the Expanses read by the end of the year, though. I'd like to get those. And, I could do another Stormlight archive. That's fantasy, though. Do I do Expanse and then Stormlight and then start Joy Overcrowd Me? Because it'll be like December then. Nah, it wouldn't be that long. I could probably get 1 or 2 Abercrombies in. I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think?